To be the Wizard King in Black Clover is an immense honor in the Clover Kingdom. It means your feats or accomplishments are so widely acknowledged and so immense that you are recognized as the leader of the Magic Knights. And the creator of Black Clover considers this knight holding such position as the strongest of their time.
Likewise, to be the Hokage in Naruto is an immense honor in the village hidden in the leaves. It means your feats and accomplishments... Wait, why does this sound so familiar?
Anyway, today's video is going to be about the Wizard Kings from the Sword of the Wizard King movie. So the revived versions of Princia, Jester, Edward, and Conrad versus the alive prime versions of Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, and Minato. If you want to hear our thoughts on how Compound Conrad would fare against these Hokage on his own, or how the Hokage would try to save the Leaf Village from Doom's Gate, wait until the end of the video, as we will explain it all. Besides Conrad, the 4 Wizard Kings don't have a lot of actual destructive feats in the movie, but we know that we can upscale them from feats in earlier parts of Black Clover. All of them would dwarf the power of Fauna's Fire Spirit Salamander, which would have multi-continental attack potency. They'd also be stronger than Reeve or Dorothy, who can create moons in their dream dimension. And yes, they would even dwarf the power of Lick's ultimate magic that would likely push the attack potency levels into these small planetary levels when you combine all the power of the elves together. As Lick's ultimate magic only dented Zagrid's magical power, implying the War Devil scales above it, and all these Wizard Kings have feats that scale well above Zagrid. Jester's barrier can withstand Asta's massive Black Divider that would dwarf his Elf Saga power levels that ended Zagrid. And Jester can even kick it downward, sending it and the Black Bull's base plummeting before they need Mereoleona to pull off a Superman maneuver. Edward was casually throwing around Yami, who had gotten many power-ups since his fight with Zagrid, and Princia's soldiers that are far weaker than her can actually slow down 3 full stamina captains, including William, who just days later, Zenon implies could overcome his 80% power. Conrad also just lets Asta land a Black Divider on him, and it did basically nothing. And while you could push it higher, I know nobody wants to see a chain scale with a video featuring 8 characters. And as for these Wizard Kings having possibly infinite or high universal attack potency, I think that's certainly possible, but because the Hokage also arguably have multiversal scaling...
Whoa. That argument is much worse than the Black Clover one, to be fair, but they're both bad.
Either way you slice it, the Hokage have the attack potency advantage. It's just not a crazy margin. It'll be enough for the Wizard Kings to at least fight back.
Most of the Hokage have a singular point that they all scale to, but in varying degrees, which will make this a bit easier to scale than what Broku just did. The Nine Tails is really the linchpin of all the Hokage scaling. Hashirama is able to suppress the power of the Nine-Tailed Fox with the Wood Golem, second strongest jutsu, by the way. And in Naruto, you must be stronger than an opponent to seal, suppress, or overcome their chakra, which is where Minato scaling comes from, as he sealed the entire Nine Tails in base while literally dying. Then during the Nine Tails invasion, Hiruzen is able to just push away the entire Nine Tails using an adamantine bow staff. And Tobirama is able to fight against an older Hiruzen who should be a bit weaker, but saying he is still in that Biju level of power really isn't that crazy. But where does the Nine Tails itself scale? Seeing as it's stated on 3 separate occasions that the QB is planetary, and later stated that a single Biju bomb from the full powered Nine Tails is able to destroy the planet, I think planetary is going to be a bare minimum of any of these characters' power. Admittedly, the Hokage probably cannot keep up in speed, so we'll just say that every character here is relative in speed so that this fight can happen in any sort of entertaining way.
So I want to give a little disclaimer for you guys. We are not giving the Wizard Kings the Imperial Sword. We think it's a little bit too much and not necessarily fair to have the Wizard Kings essentially have infinite stamina while also slowly draining the power of the Hokage, possibly copying their abilities with the sword, so we're not giving them the sword for this battle. You could comment down below and tell us what you think, though, how that could change the battle if the Wizard Kings did possess the sword. If you're enjoying this video and want to see other videos like it, please like and subscribe. It not only tells me that you guys are enjoying the content, but also that the video topics are really engaging for you. So make sure to give this video a like, and we'll get into the battle.
Hashirama, the god of shinobi, as everybody calls him, he's not one to scoff at. His primary fighting style is his wood-style senjutsu or sage jutsu, which has a crazy amount of utility. Wood style allows him to suppress chakra, create healing techniques, make barriers, or to create his most powerful jutsu, the thousand-armed Buddha statue. With this ultimate technique, he can rip Susanoo armor off of an enraged nine-tailed fox. Since Hashirama has such an extreme mastery over his Sage Mode, he can activate it with a simple clap of his hands. Unlike some of the other Hokage, his durability does seem to directly scale to his chakra output, and in an even fight, his extreme levels of regeneration tend to give him the edge over his opponents, being able to passively heal wounds on the same level of Tsunade or Sakura without weaving a single handsaw.
Princia Funny Bunny should be the second strongest of the 4 Wizard Kings from the movie at the very least. You might be able to argue she scales above base Conrad, but we kind of are equalizing stats in a way. Princia is not only hailed for being strong amongst the Wizard Kings, but also for being an actual physical fighter, which unlike the Naruto verse that has the prominence of taijutsu, that's pretty rare for Black Clover. So she's probably going to be the best Wizard King in this video when it comes to just straight hands. We don't actually know the extent of how good of a hand-to-hand fighter she was, or the level of her training, but she could square up with Mereoleona. I mean, she has to be at least pretty good, and the light novel does refer to her as a martial artist, which that term is usually applied to someone who actually practices technique, form, strategy, and tactics when it comes to fighting. So it shouldn't be that she's just some sort of a brawler, but she actually does know how to fight. As for abilities, Princia possesses Legion magic, which she uses to summon chess piece soldiers through various spells. The strength of her soldiers depend on their rank, as the pawns are the weakest, with herself eventually becoming the queen as their strongest. While on screen we see many thousands of different soldiers, and can seemingly control them at will from a great distance, the light novel does describe that her ability is literally creating infinite soldiers within her spell known as Endless Domination. Within her army, she can actually cast a very interesting spell called Blink Casting. This allows her to switch places with her soldiers as a type of swapping teleportation. Her final spell is called End Empress, where she forms all of her soldiers into a giant soldier and becomes the queen on the board. We don't actually see what she can do with this spell, but at the very least, she'll be far stronger than her other variations.
Speaking of swapping places and teleportation, up next we've got Tobirama. Hailed as the fastest shinobi of his era, Tobirama is a force to be reckoned with. Even though he has access to all chakra natures, he usually elects to engage in close quarters combat or use his water style jutsu. Using his Flying Thunder God techniques, he can catch opponents off guard, especially when they believe that they've already won. That said, he supplements his taijutsu with his water style and the forbidden Edo Tensei technique that allows him to revive the dead to fight alongside him. Tandem paper bombs, a technique where he multiplies paper bombs into the millions, may be an option, but he himself says that this jutsu is reserved for his Edo Tensei summonings.
And then we got Jester, who possesses barrier magic. This allows him to create what are essentially force fields that come in varying shapes and sizes, but he can also morph the barriers into toy weapons like swords, or even create these weird giant behemoths that look to be made of crystals and shoot out lasers. Jester should also have decent physicals while reinforced with his magic power, as he can actually kick down one of Asta's largest black dividers. And his barriers should protect him from attacks both physical and magical, so his barrier should scale well above his natural mana skin. But I believe that Jester actually has barrier magic protecting his skin, which would go beyond a conventional mana skin or maybe even a mana zone. Think Yami's Black Moon, where he fuses his dark magic spell, Black Hole with his mana zone to create an entire new effect. It's probable that Jester is doing the same thing with his barrier magic, as that could explain how he defended against the combo spell Dimension Slash, which is supposed to be an attack that has durability negation and cuts through spaces or dimensions. Since we know that his barriers act similar to space as it's implied in the light novel of the film, but also his barrier magic actually disrupts spatial magic as well. Since the only time besides this that we see Dimension Slash get negated is by Dante's Singularity, which warps space and time. So if a weakness to Dimension Slash is spatial manipulation, and Jester's barriers have spatial manipulation, it likely means that Jester has a barrier covering his body, at least when he powers up and rips his shirt off, giving him resistance to durability negation, and that's not even with his strongest barrier protecting his body yet, as he ate the combo Dimension Slash before he was starting to absorb his own barrier.
Known as the Professor for his ability to perform all ninjutsu in the Hidden Leaf, Hiruzen Sarutobi is someone who needs a lot of lore to scale. He really is a jack of all trades and can fight any way that he wishes, but he seems to just use taijutsu in his summoning technique, the Monkey King Enma. Touted to be the most powerful summoning creature in existence, he can transform Enma into a staff made of adamantine, the same material that has chakra suppression qualities when used as chains from Uzumaki clan members. He has a reputation of being the strongest Hokage in his prime, and when it comes to physicality, I'm inclined to agree. Now, there is a statement directly saying that Hiruzen was the strongest of the Hokage in his prime, but his ninjutsu ability is severely lacking in reference to some of the others, making me believe that he is a stronger fighter, especially because he can withstand the force of a raging, full-power nine-tailed fox pushing against him without moving or even slipping back.
Now, Edward might have the most interesting magic out of any Wizard King, maybe besides Conrad, but you might not get that impression from the film. Ice wedge magic sounds more interesting than just ice magic, and that is more prevalent in the light novel. As the light novel of the movie explains more about his ability, that is that with his monozone spell, World in Church, Edward can manipulate the temperature of space to absolute zero. If you don't know, absolute zero, it's both a temperature and scientific concept within our real-world physics and chemistry. Temperature is basically the measure of energy. While infinite energy is possible, negative energy is not, as the absence of energy is just zero. As such, absolute zero is when there is no heat or energy in an area. This is a temperature of 0 degrees Kelvin, the equivalent of negative 273 degrees Celsius. Now, in our real-world physics, absolute zero is technically impossible because it would require infinite energy to reduce something to zero energy. But we do know what would happen at absolute zero, and because this is anime, let's assume how Edward's magic should work. Considering that heat is energy, and energy is literally just defining movement, that means if there is zero temperature, then there is zero movement. In theory, nothing can move in absolute zero. That is unless if it too has infinite energy, which means that if Edward does activate his spell, none of the Hokage would be able to move unless if they had infinite energy or have shown resistances to absolute zero temperatures. But I'm sure there has to be at least one of these Hokage that can find their way around this mess.
Finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. The yellow flash of the leaf, Minato Namikaze, needs no explanation. You know who he is, you know what he does. Flying Thunder God, Rasengan, Sealing Jutsu, right? But also he has access to some different techniques he uses less often but need to be noted for this fight. With his Flying Thunder God Guiding Thunder technique, he can teleport large techniques or attacks without ever having to touch them. He has the ability to use Sage Mode to not only amplify his jutsu, but his physical durability to an extreme extent with natural energy, but it takes him some time to develop. He's by far the fastest of Team Hokage, and his Flying Thunder God technique can be used in tandem with others for a surprise attack or to allow his allies to be pulled out of the way of attacks that could be fatal.
Conrad Leto is him. Key magic allows him to both store and steal magic from anyone, can also store magic that he doesn't elect to steal, as well as magic items that he takes. When he uses Janus Baptism, it even steals the magic power of the target. But there is a limit to Janus Baptism, as it states the weaker the target, the easier it is, which means by inverse logic, the stronger the opponent, the harder it is. Since we're doing similar stats here, we both agreed that Conrad should have the ability to steal the magic of the Hokage, but only if he's actually defeated them in battle. He can't just take it from him like he did with Noel. And he should be a bit more of a physical fighter than the other Wizard Kings besides Princia, as we did see him swapping hands in the film against Asta. So while he'd be less skilled than a Hokage in hand-to-hand combat, he wouldn't be completely defenseless. For this matchup, we've decided to give Conrad every single magical attribute that we see that he has in the film, since we don't know whether he got it from the sword or his key magic. We will be excluding Princia, Edward, and Jester's magic from his collection, as well he should have it in the movie. We know that he got that from the sword, and we don't even see him use it anyways. So I will name off some of the elements, all the irrelevant ones that he can use in the film. He has fire, wind, earth, water, lightning, light, and likely he has spatial magic for appearing within the magic research division out of nowhere, and also he has memory magic. Since we know that Elf Marks had these crossbows that shot memory bolts that make the user completely forget everything, that gives him a crazy weapon against the Hokage. But because of this, he can also get the memories of the Hokage just by being in their presence, but it is limited. We know Conrad is already a pretty good strategist as he nearly took over the Clover Kingdom, and with him knowing all about the Wizard Kings and their abilities, just like how he used this to discover anti-magic with Marks' memory, the Wizard Kings would have a major advantage. But while I think Conrad is a good strategist, I do think the Hokage are better tacticians. This video is sponsored by War Thunder. This is the most comprehensive vehicle-based combat game ever. There are more than 2,000 different tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships where you can experience dynamic PvP battles. The detailed design to the models of each vehicle leads to highly immersive combat. Play War Thunder for free now on PC, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, or PlayStation 4. The timelines of vehicles spans over 100 years, featuring crafts from the 1920s all the way up to the present day. You can take these vehicles and customize them to your liking with hundreds of different camouflages, 3D decorators like bushes or other equipment, and other historical markings, and you can even customize the anime skins that you download. War Thunder features incredible graphics and detail with 4K resolution paired with the amazing sound and music. It makes you feel like you're actually on the battlefield. Even the combat in the game is realistic, as there are no conventional hit points. Instead, the vehicles will actually suffer damage, and there will even be a damage x-ray that shows where the vehicle is being damaged or destroyed. Personally, my favorite vehicle in War Thunder is the A10 Thunderbolt. It just looks badass. Play War Thunder now for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox using my link in the description or pinned comment down below. When you register on PC, there's a large free bonus pack for using my link that includes multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, boosters, and much more. Through my link, both PC and console players will gain access to a free 3D Dakimakura. There are cool new anime-themed vehicles like the Japanese AH-1S helicopter Kizarazu that can now be purchased in-game, and features an anime design actually used by the JSDF. So the first match in this Hokage versus Wizard King matchup is Hashirama versus Princia, two of the heavy hitters amongst these characters. And one of the things that really sticks out to me is that we've already said Hashirama has a decently big attack potency advantage, but it's not just that. Naruto characters, when it comes to martial arts, are just completely different compared to Black Clover. Like, Princia is like stated to be a martial artist, but there's like no martial artists in Black Clover besides like Mariona, maybe the Hiruzen, with how like traditionally Japanese they are and being samurai. But Hashirama as the Hokage, his taijutsu should be crazy.
It is. You've got Hashirama fighting Madara, who, like, I mean, you can pull up the clip of Madara just running through all these, like, Jonin level fighters like they're nothing, slicing through them like butter. And Madara has, like, predictive sight or foresight, depending on how you want to say the Sharingan works. And Hashirama's still able to engage in swordplay with him. It's not the same kind of fighting. Hashirama, if it's a brawl, Hashirama wins. And if it turns into a Gundam fight, Hashirama still wins. I don't actually think Hashirama needs the Buddha statue for her. I think that if he just decides to go with the golem or the dragon, or God forbid he turns on Sage mode, she's just done. So Princia is packed up. All right, we can. I say we move on to the next one. We've got our resident white hairs, Tobirama versus Jester. What are your thoughts on it?
I kind of feel like this is probably, to me, it seems like this would be the worst fight. Like, I feel like just Jester is not putting up a great fight against Tobirama. He's not very skilled, and like his barriers are good defensively, but like they're not like completely negating anything. And with Tobirama already having a decently big attack potency advantage, I don't think the barriers are going to be doing that much. And also, he makes weapons out of the barriers, but they're like never really shown to be like that much stronger than what his regular like attacks are.
Even if you say like Jester gets Tobirama to the brink, Jester is a very arrogant character, and Tobirama's entire fighting style is based on the idea that whenever someone thinks they've beat him, he teleports above them and slices their throat. Like Jester, I think Jester falls probably not as quickly as Princia does, because that's just a mismatch. But boy, does Jester just get killed in this matchup. I don't think it's going to be specifically close. And if it is, Tobirama just pulls out a last second W.
So I think we just go right into Edward versus Hiruzen. And this is where I think the Black Clover Wizard Kings start to make up some ground.
Yay!
Edward has an ability where he can create the temperature in the space to absolute zero, and in theory that means nothing should be able to move. And while Edward in the movie was a little wary on using that at first against the Black Bulls, he would probably recognize Hiruzen as an immediate threat and activate World In Church to actually have the absolute zero temperature. And you can say either Hiruzen doesn't move at all, or he's just severely slowed down, but I don't think he has the temperature resistance to completely resist it, which would give Edward a pretty big advantage. and then it would allow Edward to activate his even bigger spells that are even more powerful. And so this is where I think that the Wizard Kings get their first W, because of Hiruzen not having a great resistance to Absolute Zero.
Yeah, you got the two old heads fighting, and one of them beats the other. I just, the moment Hiruzen gives like a good attack, Edward's gonna back away and be like, okay, whoa. Unless Hiruzen just annihilates him with one shot when he's still trying to size the guy up, I see him getting stuck, but I don't think it's going to matter much because you've got Daddy Hashirama and Tobirama coming to the rescue. If you say Edward kills Hiruzen, fair. If you think Hiruzen's durability is so high that he would just be frozen, also fair. But what we do know is that Hiruzen is probably out of commission after this fight, and Edward is definitely getting jumped on directly after this fight.
Well, I was also say that I don't think Edward beats Hiruzen fast enough to help any of the other Wizard Kings in their fight, which is exactly what you said. It's just going to lead to Tobirama and Hashirama just ganging up on him and finding a way through the Absolute Zero, or like taking him off guard.
But the main event, right? The big thing, Conrad versus Minato, that's got layers to it.
But yeah, Conrad versus Minato, like probably the most hyped matchup out of all of these. I mean, we think it's pretty equal, partially because of how many magic types that Conrad can throw out there, including some like actual like crazy abilities like spatial magic, and his memory magic will let him get like some know-how of how Minato fights. Like, he won't get like a complete analysis of Minato's abilities, but the more Minato fights, he should be able to read more of his memories because he has marked his memory magic. And we know that the more memory magic user has, they can end up shooting crossbow bolts that completely erase memories. I would think that Conrad would be able to do that, even though he didn't do that in the movie. So he had like a lot of really good abilities. And if, and this is a big if, we do see him use tree magic in the movie. If it is William's World Tree Magic, I think he takes the W, but we don't know for sure if it is, even if it's showing similar abilities like absorbing magic. But if it is, I think he actually wins this before the other Hokage come and help him.
I think Minato's too evasive for him to land a deciding blow. And Minato's a very analytical fighter. Not to mention we just found out how powerful his sealing jutsu is. At the age of 17, depending on how you translate this, doing sealing jutsu on the level of Hashirama. And that's when he's like 17, 18. So I genuinely don't know, between Minato's evasiveness and his ability to seal, I think he could really be a problem for Conrad. Even if they're at this equal speed, I think that FTG gets negated a little bit by the fact that Conrad does have a pretty good monozone on him. So he'd be able to sense the chakra welling up, and he'd probably be able to look a little bit in and see, hey, this guy's about to come at me from this angle. And that's going to be pretty hard for Minato to adapt to.
If he has World Tree Magic, he either wins or he's winning. If not, pretty close. But either way, the other Hokage from their victories are going to be coming in and ganging up on Conrad. And that's going to lead to Compound Conrad.
Yeah, I think Conrad, whenever he starts getting jumped, just immediately comes and says, no, screw this. I'm powering up. And Compound Conrad is a very different story. The Hokage have predominantly had that AP advantage, but whenever you get into Compound, it gets a little fuzzier. He's starting to match the weaker Hokage, and I'd say he's probably a match for Minato at this point. Maybe not Hashirama, of course. But do you think that there's any utility that he gets from that form that starts to bring him close to winning the fight?
The issue with like Compound Conrad is it really just displays like a power increase. I don't think it really shows too much of like him using more magic types at once or whatever. Like, I'm trying to think, like, doesn't he pretty much only just fight with a sword and fight physically, and then he just blasts like wind magic at us at the very end of the fight before he turns it around? So like, he doesn't really show any versatility despite it, like, even though it should. It could just be that that's just how the form works. So while I think it would be very helpful to have the power advantage, I don't think it's going to be enough against 3 Hokage, especially considering the Hokage have way better stamina than any Black Clover character. Black Clover characters get tired with like single battles over like minutes to maybe hours long. How long do Hokages fight for?
So you've got, I mean, Naruto fought for 3 days during the Shinobi World War. 3 days. You've got the third Raikage, who is said to have like fought for weeks, I think, against like a troop of thousands of shinobi. He's just 1v1ing them over and over again. And it seemed like Madara and Hashirama's battle lasted through the night. Naruto and Sasuke's final Valley battle also lasted throughout the night. So you've got even these people who are using these super high levels of ninjutsu that take tons of chakra, and it's still hours, days, weeks. And not to mention, Hashirama and Minato still can use Sage Mode to revitalize themselves. And that amps their durability to a crazy degree. I mean, Naruto's able to like fall hundreds of thousands of feet, hundreds or thousands, sorry. And he's just fine. He's getting up because he's Sage Mode. So do you think it, I think it comes to Doomsgate. I don't think Compound is going to be enough.
I think Compound, like, it would be like an actual fight, but just like, once his stamina is getting drained and he's fighting 3 of them at once, especially like actual good fighters, he's gonna have to activate Doomsgate. And that's when it's like, okay, best case scenario, Conrad sacrifices everything for a tie.
Yeah, let's not even, we don't even really need to get into yet how the Hokage could beat Doomsgate, because at best he ties all of his comrades, all of Conrad's comrades are on the sidelines, either dead or knocked out, and he's 3v1ing the Hokage. Let's say he drops the bomb, and it's just a matter of, okay, well, he tied. I know we talked about this a little bit behind. Do you think the Hokage can stop Doomsgate?
I think they can, and like they might even be able to just stop Conrad from floating up into the sky and getting the meteor ready. Because, like, I know that's, like, a cinematic thing, like, why, like... And Asta was knocked away, too. That's why he didn't, like, go after Conrad. He was the only person capable of fighting Conrad at the time. But you could just argue that because there's 3 Hokage there, they might just beat Conrad down before he even gets up there. But as you've said, there also are abilities that might be able to just, like, get it away anyways.
I mean, you've got Guiding Thunder, which is Minato's ability to teleport these huge items like Biju Bombs. Maybe he can't do it all the way in base, but it's possible he could do it in Sage Mode. And you've also still got the 1,000-hand Buddha statue. Minato, depending on which one you use, could use his QB avatar mode. I personally don't think that meteor is ever landing.
I think it's kind of like 50-50, but like we said, either way, it's a tie or a loss. Or you could look at it as still a win for the Hokage, because they actually won more of their individual fights, if you could, like, count it out by that. But I don't know if the Wizard Kings have a consistent win condition. I think the Hokages have more, and they're more likely to get to them.
And it's possible Minato and Hashirama just walk up to Doomsgate and seal it away. Doomsgate never opens because they seal it away. Because they've just got this, like, planetary level ceiling. Casually. I don't see Conrad taking it, but I understand anybody who does. But I think that's about it.
And don't forget to check out today's sponsor, War Thunder. Use my link below to get 7 days of access to a premium account, 100,000 silver lions, a booster to speed your progress, and unique 3D Dakimakuras that you can only get through my link. Who knows, maybe you'll find me playing in my A10 in the game. This game is available on PC, Xbox Series X and S, as well as PS4 and PS5. Yeah, so thanks, Spencer, for coming on again. Do you want to shout out your channel yourself?
Yeah, go subscribe to Speener. I will eventually upload again, and you should definitely watch out for it. But what you should do before that is hit the like button. There's going to be another video ready to play, our last Black Clover Naruto video. And make sure to join the channel membership. Man, it's a pretty great program. You can get Broku to follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, with that being said, hope everybody has a good day, and peace out.